All right, so my pleasure for the next session, very exciting session and very important in the situation in the world today. So Daniel Runde is the Senior Vice President and Director of the Project on Prosperity and Development and holds the William Shire Chair in Global Analysis in the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or known as CSIS, which is a leading global think tank. His work is oriented around the U.S. Leadership in building a more democratic and prosperous world. Among his many contributions, Mr. Runde is also architect of the BUILD Act, contributed to the reauthorization of the U.S. Exim Bank, and was architect of Prosper Africa, a U.S. government initiative to deepen the United States commercial and development engagement in Africa. He has been a leading voice on the role and future of the World Bank and U.S. leadership in the multilateral system. Daniel is also author of the book, The American Imperative, Reclaiming Global Leadership Through Soft Power. Fluent in English, fluent in Spanish, luckily also fluent in English. Okay. He graduated from Dartmouth College and holds a master's degree in public policy from Harvard University. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, I've been working on my Duolingo English, so let's see how I do. Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Runde. I'm honored to be a part of this important session at Minerals X. I want to congratulate Minerals X. This is really tremendous. I want to also congratulate Cobalt for being, visionaries and investing in this great idea. So, we're going to be. One of the other hats I wear at CSIS, I've been running a 3-year-long reconstruction commission for Ukraine. I've gotten to know Mr. Kubrakov through that process. I also sit on the board of the Ukraine Moldova America Enterprise Fund, which is an investment fund set up in the Clinton administration and supported by both houses of Congress 30 years ago. And that institution spun off the only real private equity fund in Ukraine and Moldova called Horizon Capital. So between Horizon Capital and the Ukraine Moldova America Enterprise Fund, we've invested in about 80 tech companies in Ukraine. We're going to be talking about a number of things around the Ukraine and minerals, but one of the things I think we're going to want to talk about is the role of technology and potentially Ukrainian technology in the Ukrainian minerals story. So, look, Ukraine historically has been known for 3 things: hands, brains, and grains. Manufacturing, tech, and agriculture. When the war is over, in my mind, there'll be 3 other things in the post-war. One will be rocks, right, minerals and gas. The second will be guns, defense tech, guns and drones, right, defense tech. It'll be 2% of their economy. And the third will be the creative economy. Film, music, other things. In my mind, those would be the 6 pillars of the Ukrainian economy. And in my mind, and I think Mr. Kubrakov would agree, potentially Ukraine could be the place that not only is a minerals powerhouse, but is also a place that could process minerals. They've got the know-how, they potentially have the cheap energy, they have the manufacturing capacities. They could be an alternative to China. That may be a longer-term play, but I think it's something we should all consider. Okay. So it's obviously this conversation's super timely. There was an announcement back at the end of April about a U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal that we're going to talk about. It potentially could reshape Ukraine's economy and rethink the whole conversation. It certainly got a lot of attention. When I was there in February, I've made 5 trips to Ukraine since the war. I met with the AmCham, and they were only, and it's a very fine American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine, they were only in February standing up a critical minerals working group, that's for a whole series of reasons. One is that the mineral sector and the energy sector have been known for maybe not necessarily like the brightest lights or the strongest business leaders entering the sector. I don't know how else to say it. I'm still working on my English, guys, so you'll have to read between the lines. But I'll just say that there's a whole series of reforms that are going to be needed, whether it's transparency, permitting, governance, anti-corruption. We're going to talk about that. And obviously, there's a whole series of there's a conversation to be had here about the technologies that are needed since we're here at Minerals X. So look, I've got a whole series of questions for the minister. He's got a presentation. But I think we're going to cover, I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation and a very timely one. So, Mr. Kubrakov, come on up, and I'll give you a chance to share a few slides, and then we'll have a conversation. Thanks. Please welcome Mr. Kubrakov.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity, for organizers, for participants. Yeah, I tried to cover key questions which Daniel already raised, but yeah, I would propose to start with presentation, a very few slides, not to overload again this events meeting. Yeah, you mentioned, Daniel mentioned several sectors of economy which will be again key sectors for post-war economy and during the war. I wouldn't again spend a lot of time on this, but again our key three export sectors before the war, during the war, and I think after that also will be it's still again agricultural and food industry, steel industry, and IT services. Regarding critical minerals, we had in USSR period of time some subsegments developed. I mean, it's titanium. We had whole cycle. We had graphite. Slightly, we had uranium, but yes, it's during last all key assets they were constructed, they were developed, they were invested in USSR period of time, and nothing was happened during last 30 years. My personal opinion, because first of all, Ukrainian financial groups, they were more interested in much simple assets, which this is not small and medium business. This is business required long-term investments, security situation, and they were interested in Ukrainian financial groups. They were interested in much easier assets, with paper period, I don't know, 1 to 3 years, and those deposits, minerals, they were still under the earth. Yeah. So what's going on right now during the war? This is front line. You see eastern part of Ukraine temporarily occupied, and if I try to answer your question, Daniel, about 60% of minerals of different deposits is controlled by Ukraine. About 40% it's temporarily not controlled by Ukraine. We can share this material, so you will see in details, but yeah, historically, again, Ukraine, it's titanium, it's graphite. We have deposits of lithium and other, but yeah, almost all again key minerals exist in Ukraine. Oil and gas, again, I'd like to remind that again, even before 16th, 17th in USSR period of time, Ukraine was key country which supplied gas to whole USSR, and key science in this area still was and still in Ukraine. It's estimation of BCG, key, yeah, iron ore. I didn't mention it's minerals, but this is not critical minerals. Yeah, Ukraine has one of the largest again deposits of iron ore, and we continue export it even during the war. Yeah, majority of minerals, again, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on this. Just we will come back. Competitiveness, yeah, it's still, yeah, comparing cost of production with European countries and other countries with other players. Yeah. Yeah, FDIs, that's, again, key question, again, during the last 30 years, as I mentioned, in this sector where we didn't have any significant projects, almost key projects, they were based on all assets developed in the USSR period of time. And mining and yeah, this sector was more developed because, again, we had stronger players. Benchmarking, I would come up just to problems. Yeah. Still, you, like Daniel mentioned, some problems which we had inside. Yes, I think it's important to say, yes, that a lot of again, it's good words like the risk investments. Yes, key factor right now it's war. Yeah, it's obvious that during the war, nobody would commit for projects with, I don't know, 10, 20 years cycle and to invest some significant in volume of money in such projects. But again, there are a lot of things on our side. Again, first of all, like a coordination between different state bodies, institutions, and organizations. Again, what also like could be done during the war, from my point of view. Again, Ukraine is quite. We had like in USSR period of time. Again, it was quite discovered. I mean, all key deposits they already like exist, like samples, information. What is critical right now? Again, not to waste time, and like several startups projects were mentioned, but again to use modern technology and to convert this data like from previous researches into modern data, which will be more understandable for potential investors. Again, ensure stability of supply chain, and again, yes, to accelerate process of land licenses, permitting. Yes, we mentioned this, like a lot of data classified. It was classified in 2016. Nobody knows, probably nobody could answer even right now why it's classified. I mean, this like data regarding these minerals, like nothing secret, nothing nothing important for national security. So yeah. So I'm stopping here. Probably we could discuss now. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It was slides, last slide.
Yeah, maybe we should keep this slide up.
This,
Yeah, good.
Oh, this
All right,
one, yeah,
Let's
okay.
join, let's sit on the chairs and have a conversation. Okay.
Just, Daniel, just want to remind the audience that there is a microphone for questions, but we're also using Slido, so there is a QR code, and it goes to Slido, and you can just type your question in, and then do that, and then we can organize it quicker and better. Just read off your questions.
Please use Slido. So thanks a lot for making the really long trip from Kiev. I want to first, could I just do an infomercial for Kiev? I've been there 5 times since the war. It's pretty normal. But obviously, it's not. I don't want to be blasé or flippant about it. There's a, you know, it's a city in wartime, but all the restaurants are open, all the hotels are, everything works. So if you haven't been to Ukraine since the war and you're at all curious about it, would you encourage people to come visit Ukraine?
Yes, for sure. Like again, it looks like that. Yes. As you mentioned, life is almost normal. I mean, in
It's
Kyiv,
almost
yeah.
normal.
Yeah. So, like, but again, like, let's be honest. Last night was like
Not so good.
not so good. I mean, it was one of the largest attacks on Kyiv. So, I mean, just
Yeah.
you have to think. Like,
Yeah, you got to think about it. I mean, they have when I stay at the Intercontinental, you go in the bomb shelter. They have an app,
Yeah.
and it's safe. It's you know, it's pretty safe. But I think it's all right. So let's talk about, you know, I think if we'd had this 6 months ago, or let's say a year ago, no one was talking about Ukraine's minerals, right? I think I think one of the things we got to credit the Trump administration for is that they've put the minerals conversation squarely on the map. I don't think we'd have had this conversation at the beginning of Minerals X 12 months ago, but we're in a different place. What is your guess, Minister, about the size? How big is the size of the deposits? Nobody really knows, but there's a variety of ranges about it, and you had some ranges up there, but talk a little about this.
I mean, it's obvious that yes, like even based on like deposits which is already developed, like we understand that we're talking about like hundreds of billions. But yes, here you know the question again of price. I mean of operational costs. How many you should invest? Like what kind of what will be profitability of those projects? Because it depends. Like I mentioned, like for example, iron ore. Yeah, but we have some other countries where, for example, it could be a little bit cheaper. Or I mentioned titanium. Yes, we have. It's proved. We exported.
Proven reserves.
We exported before large-scale invasion to many countries, and like it's clear that we have this. Yeah. So the key question is again how to use involve investors. Again, the key problem. This is not small and medium business. You have to invest like
it's capital intensive.
At least hundreds of millions during several years, and then like again, projects with cycle 20, 30, 50 years. So like,
I mean, the estimates I've seen, you hear numbers as big as $25 trillion. Who knows? Even if you cut it by a tenth, let's say it was $2 trillion, that's still a lot, right? It's still a lot.
Sure.
Right? Okay. So it's a big number. It's bigger than I think people realize. And yeah, there's some challenges, but in any context, in mining, there are challenges, right? Okay. All right. Okay. So how about, it seems to me, Minister, that you were in the government. You were the Minister of Infrastructure. You were the Minister of Reconstruction, the Deputy Prime Minister. So there's a series of reforms and steps in your mind and in the government's mind that are needed to kind of make this potential a reality. Could you walk through several of them?
yeah, we already mentioned like first and easy step, declassify like all this the information
Survey
regarding
material.
yes. So I hope this would happen. I mean,
Let me just stop you there. So declassifying the survey right now, it's classified in a lot of countries. It's classified. Do you believe it's the policy of this government to declassify the surveys?
Yes, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm hearing this, like they're promising to do
Yeah,
this.
I have heard this also. So I think one of the things you should take away is that this government is committed to declassifying the survey materials, right? Yep, okay? Okay. Okay. So one is declassification.
Second, I think we have, like, let's be honest, during the last 30 years, during the independence period of time, a lot of like assets, potential assets deposited with good like profitability, with good perspectives, licenses on such deposits, they were issued by people close to governments. I mean, we call it like in our country sleeping licenses.
Dormant licenses.
Yeah,
So if for your birthday, Leonid Kuchma, the then president of Ukraine, would give for your birthday, you'd get a license, right, or something like that to one of his political friends.
During different period of times, but the key question, like people received this license almost for nothing, they paid almost anything, and they are not investing in this because again, they try to resell in different stages in different period of times. But again, from my point of view, again, it's fair like approach. Guys, you paid nothing. We can pay you back nothing.
We'll pay you nothing.
And just to have real contest and attract majors in this sector. So that's
Mr. Minister, let me just push a little bit further on. So there's 3,000 existing licenses in Ukraine. The estimate is as high as 1,000 dormant licenses.
Sure.
The government that you are in is committed to dealing with this issue of dormant licenses. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's openly discussed, promised, etc. So because again, without this, we can't expect like all those figures in this sector. Okay. So that's second problem.
There's a step. There are steps going to be taken in the Ukraine's a democracy. There are steps going to be taken by this government to deal with this in the Ukrainian legislature, which is called the Rada, to deal specifically with this issue. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah. That's
okay.
That's second. Third, again, even during the war, like, again, cooperation with partners, allies, different IFIs, definitely we could work on, again, on converting of previous data, which we received during USSR period of time, and to convert it into, like, again, feasibility studies according to international standards, because without this we couldn't make those projects bankable, all potential contests interesting, nobody will prove and trust to the data which we received again in USSR period of time. Like,
so there's a feasibility study component that either the World Bank or the EBRD or the European Union is either working on or they're thinking about, right?
Yeah. But again, with such technologies which you mentioned today in previous presentation, I think it could be done in easier way, cheaper and faster. So that's, I think, from my point of view.
Okay, you were Minister of Infrastructure at one point. What kind of infrastructure improvements or changes need to be had? Let's say we were to realize the potential in the 60% of Ukraine. Most of Ukraine is under control of Ukraine. 20% is temporarily under the control of the illegal invasion by the Russians, and in the part of the country that Ukraine controls, what infrastructure changes or improvements need to be made to make real this potential for minerals?
From my point of view, like we don't need here like any significant improvements in infrastructure sector, because first of all we have quite developed like logistics systems. We have ports, deep sea ports on Odessa. I remind you that like the deepest port on Black Sea
is in Odessa.
It's Port Pivdena in Odessa. Yes, that's the only one port which serves Cape-size vessels on Black Sea. Second, we have one of the most developed railway system, transportation system in Europe, in the world, because Ukraine was at the heart of industries in USSR period of time. So again, this is still working. And another segment close to this, like minerals, it's iron ore. Again, like companies, players in this sector, they're exporting and producing millions of tons each year. So I mean, I don't see like that. Infrastructure and
it's
logistics, that's an issue. This is not an issue.
How about energy? If you want to pull rocks out of the ground, you need energy. There's potential for hydro. There's potential for nuclear. There's potential for geothermal. There's potential for wind and solar in Ukraine. There's also potential for more gas, both within Ukraine, but also to import gas. Is there enough energy today to make real the potential of the mineral sector in Ukraine?
I think this could be an issue, but again, during the last 2 years, what's happening in Ukraine? In Ukraine is booming like green energy because of, again, different companies, like private people, they constructed gigawatts by themselves in order just, again, to maintain their business, to maintain operations, and people like, and households also like constructed almost 1 gigawatt. So I see like pipeline of potential projects in wind energy, and I see like 5, 6 gigawatts already projects which on different stages. Some of these wind parks already constructed, some planning, all of them with storages, all of them with a combination of solar. So I think again, and largest steel producers, Arcelor.
Arcelor is a big player in Ukraine.
They own the owners of the largest steel plant in Ukraine. Arcelor, Metinvest, they already constructed or they are considering construction of their own solar stations, wind stations. So everybody trying to be more independent, protected, and not depend from the main grid. So that's reality.
Okay, so I think there was I think the U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal and all the discussion in the lead up to it put the Ukraine minerals potential on the map. Could you explain a little bit to this audience as you understand the transaction? I mean, there was a lot of back and forth, but explain to this audience, what is the U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal?
Good question, because still like some of the documents classified, and even people in Ukraine, like we don't understand all the details. Yes, you're 100% right that it's increased attention to the industry, to Ukraine on this map. Again, from my point of view, key question will be how those projects will be financed. That's like what kind of sources of money will be used. It's like IFIs, it's like, I don't know, DFC, who would provide guarantees. So I think that's like still an issue. I hope again that's one day again they will come back to idea to use, for example, arrested Russian assets.
Correct. As money to fund the projects.
To fund the projects, yes. But at this stage, again, still there are a lot of questions. How this still would be like, how this like implemented in reality and practice. Second, how it like correlate with not deal, but our agreement with EU. Like we're on the way to EU accession. We signed MOU with European Union in 2021, before the war, before the large war. That's second, and third, again, from my point of view, again, I would like be a little bit more ambitious. Like if I were like again in the team or US side. So yeah, I would set like, I don't know, target, like we would establish this fund. It will be fund for reconstruction with key target in this sector in minerals. Like our aim to raise, I don't know, 200 billion, etc., like US dollars. We would use arrested Russian assets, and let's start from again 5 billion. And in this deal would participate such players to sign MOU and to start. I mean, it will show more like, I don't know, like stronger approach again in the world, like inside Ukraine,
Yeah.
everywhere, and to Russia as well. That again, US is strong, US is here, US planning again to earn here. That's okay. I mean, it's not a problem. Like if somebody is like wanted to invest, definitely it's business. Companies, they want to receive this money back, so it's normal way.
All right, so let me see. So some of the folks in this audience probably are following this minute by minute, but many folks in this audience may not be following kind of all the finer points of the things that the minister's been talking about. There are $300 billion in Russian central bank frozen assets, some in the United States, some in Belgium, some in France, some in Japan, some in Canada, some in Germany. And so those have been held. And so the question has been, should the G7 countries confiscate these central bank frozen assets and deploy them for the rebuilding of Ukraine? And a lot of people have said yes. And there's a debate about, okay, well, if we do this, this is going to set a precedent. So some central bankers and high finance folks are like, oh, this is a bad idea. We're going to set a precedent. And then bad countries like China and Iran and Russia won't put their money in our central banks anymore, right? That's what the issue is, right? And so that's the concern. But one of the sources of financing for the rebuilding of Ukraine legitimately could be what are called these Russian central bank frozen assets that the minister is referring to.
I mean, it just again to share risk. I mean, the idea was just to use this money to share risk with private sector, because again, we understand that in this reality, like during the war period of time, it's quite complicated to find companies which will invest again billions in this sector.
Okay. So in my understanding, so the other issue that the minister raised was the European Union. Joining the European Union is far less controversial than Ukraine joining NATO, which is a defense pact. Joining the EU is a really important North Star for Ukraine, and all of its reforms and all of its work as part of its rebuild and thinking about where it's going is about joining the European Union. And Minister, you know this, but Poland, for example, when it joined the European Union in 2004, from 2004 until today, got 300 billion euros in monies to help Poland kind of join the EU. So another source of money for the rebuilding of Ukraine is going to come potentially from this source. A third source could be the minerals conversation. So there's been this discussion about, okay, the U.S., I think, has, in essence, it doesn't touch existing minerals activities. It's like if we find a new minerals deposit and someone says they're going to invest in it, the U.S. companies or this fund gets got a first right of refusal. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second thing is they've also said, okay, they're going to use resources to the extent that Ukraine is making money from, I believe, from existing minerals activities. Some of those, the monies that would go to the treasury of Ukraine will go into this fund. And then the U.S., through various other sources, including things like, okay, well, we're going to donate new weapon systems, that'll be kind of like a credit in the account to draw money. So there's a little bit of some real money and some sort of aspirational money. Is that a way to describe it?
Yeah, exactly, yes. But again, just some clarification. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. But again, coming back to critical minerals, almost like nothing activities, almost all like deposits, it's new. I mean,
these are all new. This is all green
fields. Only titanium, some, but still again, almost like in 90%, it's new. And second, oil and gas sector, which is also part of this deal.
It's also part of this deal.
Here it's like we have operations, we have Naftogaz, state-owned company, we have private companies, and we have but it's this sector also. Let's be honest, we are using all existing deposits, but again, require it even like higher investments.
Just one other thing, and I've got two more questions, and I want to open it up. So, but let me just clarify one other thing about this minerals deal. So it includes oil and gas. I think it includes also other energy sectors. We're talking about, is there enough energy to pull the rocks out of the ground, right? It's also, I understand, includes the defense tech sector. So I think it's very important for this audience to understand. There are 1,200 defense tech companies in Ukraine. You've seen the spectacular action that the Ukrainians did against the Russians, even as far away as Siberia with drones. So drones is only a part of it, right, Minister? I mean, this is an entire, this isn't going to be a big part of the future of Ukraine is the defense tech sector.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yes, drone is the key, but yes, there are like other new producers, private-owned companies, which were I don't know, established 2-3 years ago during the war, and they're successfully producing, I don't know, largest number of 155 artillery systems in the world. Right now, during months, we are producing more than all other producers in total. And
I love it.
And some other sectors. That's true. Yeah, with regard, like you mentioned, drones. Yes, that's like 70-80% of all targets during the war destroyed by the drones, different types of drones. So that's number one weapon right now for Russians, same, unfortunately.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say the agreement is an important way of kind of raising awareness, but but it's a way for us to think about there's a big opportunity in the minerals sector in Ukraine. Okay, we're in Silicon Valley, Minister. So we're here at Minerals X. Could you talk about emerging technologies as you understand it, whether it's geological mapping and extraction to downstream processing? How do you think about the role of technology in the Ukrainian minerals sector?
Again, I hope that such new technologies, again, some of them actually, they have. Ukraine is historically quite strong, and again, in software outsourcing, we have our key companies. It's third export industry always. Our companies are producing, developing software for many major companies in the world, and we have some startups, they are registered probably here in this region. Behold, there are other guys. They are quite again advanced, and they are producing similar things. I'm sure that this is part of this community, but even for companies which is specialized on exploration of some deposits, etc., this software is produced in Ukraine. I know many examples by EPAM, Luxoft, all other largest companies. They are producing even during the war. They developing this software in Ukraine, and this is actually not only about based on our experience in software engineering.
Yeah.
That's based, for example, as I mentioned, for example, Center of Science of Gas Exploration was in Ukraine. It's Ivano-Frankivsk city. We have this Prikarpatsky University, and they actually, even now, they're quite strong, and they're connected with software developers companies, and they're producing software for, I wouldn't name but largest US companies.
Ones you've all heard of.
In this sector.
Okay, so there's 5,000 tech companies in Ukraine. Engineering, math, computer science, huge strengths of the Ukraine historically and today. Many of the Ukraine, Moldova, America Enterprise Fund, and Horizon Capital have invested in 80 tech companies. We're making money doing this. Horizon Capital, which is as I said, is the only real private equity fund, has a 30% year-on-year return. And so the tech sector's been growing even during the war. Is that right, Minister?
Yes, exactly.
Right,
yeah.
okay. So this is our infomercial to say there's a lot of activity happening in Ukraine. It's open for business. The tech sector can be a potential partner for the minerals conversation that we're going to be having today, right?
Yes, exactly, yes. And I hope, yes, we will use this opportunity.
Okay, got some questions. 6 questions. Okay, great, okay. Okay, some of these are good questions. Okay, where's Ukraine on its journey from a Soviet era economy or political system to a Western system based on transparency, legal title, permitting, timeline? So could you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, I think one of the concerns has been sort of reforms and transparency, and talk a little bit about that, Minister.
Yes, thank you so much for this question. I think during last several years, especially during the war, a lot of things were done in this area. Whole anti-corruption infrastructure were established. We have separate and protected institutions, National Anti-Corruption Bureau. We have special anti-corruption prosecutor, and we have separate court for those issues. I think they're proving their efficiency. This is quite young organizations, but already I think they're showing that they're cleaning up a lot of industry sectors, a lot of high-level officials right now in a jail. So I think if we just discuss this part of the question, I think that's we're showing like good progress here and like Transparency International and the indexes, they are proving this. In parallel,
Yeah, you're moving up the ranks on
Yeah,
the, and
yeah,
you're certainly
yeah.
much less corrupt than, say, Russia, for
yeah,
example.
yeah. And that's a good benchmark.
Just to use it as an example.
Yeah, but again, unfortunately for us, in many sectors, they are still like quite efficient. Like not in this. Second, a lot of like important like institutions. We have again special law. It's mostly were requested by IMF, by European Commission, by US side. We have so-called like procedures of contests and all key management people appointed with on the contest with participation of international representatives. It's mostly people from US, from Commission, international observers, and they have they have majority in this commission. So I think also that's like important, especially when we're discussing like some fiscal institutions, we're discussing some custom issues. So I hope that this last key points, this would be reformed. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, Minister, one of the things I think it's important for folks to understand is joining the European Union, what I say to an American audience is, what would you have done to join the coolest fraternity or the coolest sorority in college? What hazing would you have put up with? Maybe Stanford doesn't have fraternities or sororities, I don't know, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. There's not enough foreign aid, there's not enough white papers, there's not enough diplomatic demarches, there's not enough important seminars, but joining the coolest fraternity or joining the coolest sorority in the world, which is joining the European Union, is an incentive for the kinds of change that I think the minister that you're talking about, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And even in 2022, I remember that like in order to achieve like next stage of accession process, we had like again the war is continue like this is middle of 2022, but we had quite strict requirements from EU, and without this we couldn't move forward. Like they stopped macro finances, etc., and it was like key risks. So yeah, we did it. So no way.
And you guys are doing this during a war.
Yeah, during the war, exactly. Yeah.
As a minor detail, but you're doing this where there's bombs dropping. Okay. Here's another interesting question. Is Ukraine really interesting as a place for critical minerals compared to other established places? Or is this sort of a Trump public relations thing? The person didn't write it that way, but I'm rephrasing it. So you had a slide up there about that, but could you Minister, could you talk a little bit about how much of this is for real and how much of this is overhyped?
I think everything is for real. And again, we have proved cases in titanium, graphite, and they're commercially interested. So that's definitely 100% right. Like lithium, other like minerals, it's like again we have like a bit different mix, and this mix required a bit different technologies. And only later on we could understand like is it commercially interested, but. Asking on your question, yes, it's definitely exists. It's proved. Like there are like improvements, there are like feasibility studies, there are a lot of probes. So it's 100% right that this exists. Yeah.
So what I've heard, Minister, is that there's surveys, some of which are classified, but they've been supplemented, and you guys know the lingo. There's sort of these specific supplements to survey data that's either sort of a Canadian standard or an Australian standard. I don't know, Minister, if you know the name of it. You guys know what I'm talking about. You guys can help me out here. What's it called? Yes. So there is a series, right? Are you familiar with this? So this isn't hot air. There's actually, in addition to sort of the classified surveys, there's actually sort of this additional supplementary survey material that gives confidence that the deposits are really there.
Confidence for investors, that's the key. Before tender on licenses, before like some making of some deals, that should be done.
So if the government, maybe I could just do a show of hands here. Okay, so if the government declassified the surveys, would that make people in this room more enthusiastic about investing in Ukraine? Could you go back? You're going to send that message back to our friends in Ukraine?
To everybody.
Okay. How about dealing with dormant licenses? Is that something that would be okay? All right. So the message is, please send back to the Prime Minister and to your colleagues, your former colleagues in the government, that if you fix these two things, that there's going to be a lot more interest in Ukraine, right? Is that fair? Okay, all right, okay. Here's another question from the audience. How might Ukraine leverage existing high-tech skills for the minerals sector that's different from conventional way of building mines? Now, this may be a little bit out of area for you, but you've done a little bit of thinking about this. Could you share a little bit about your thoughts?
Again, from my point of view, all those like technologies which you mentioned already exist. I think it could reduce cost on all stages. I mean, that's a very simple question and provide more confidence and probability for investors. So we understand, yes, okay, here we don't need like all this like traditional exploration phases. So if we could like again simplify and to spend less time, to have more confidence in this deposit. So I think it's like you would.
Yeah, see if there's any more. Okay, let's see. Thanks. Okay. Okay. Do you have public tenders for mineral concessions with transparent criteria for awards?
Just recently, just on the way, I was on the way here. I saw that like lithium probably deposits tender was recently announced by the government.
Okay. How do you deal with the issue of brain drain and rebuilding talent in critical minerals, right? There has been 6 or 7, 8 million people who've left Ukraine during the war, many of whom will want to return when there's peace, hopefully sooner rather than later. Some of whom are able to kind of do this via distance, but how are you dealing with the talent issue?
I think key question will be, like again, right now that's security. That's obvious that many people they're running from the war, especially from eastern part of Ukraine. And I could provide a couple of examples. They're just a little bit small in terms of scale, but in 2014, when the war started in eastern part of Ukraine, in Crimea, like Crimea was occupied by Russia, a lot of Ukrainian IT companies, they were presented in those regions. And what they did, like in 2014, a lot of engineers, they said like, okay, no guys, we don't want to stay in Ukraine because they were running from Donetsk, eastern part of Ukraine. And they asked like, just is it possible for us to relocate to Warsaw, some other like countries,
Romania,
close to Ukraine? And they did it. And it was interesting that we analyzed what happened like later when situation stabilized. In 2-3 years, 95% of those people they come back to Ukraine because of like pretty similar salary, cost of living lower for them in Ukraine, and they came back. Coming back to question like other industries, for example, again, it was always before, like starting from again 2014, 2016, each year we had millions of people on season works in Poland. In other countries, but mostly Poland, it's like 2-3 million people, even sometimes 4 million people. And before large war in 2020, 2021, we like not pushed, but we negotiate with industries, guys, let's increase salaries. And our aim, for example, in steel industry was like, let's have a salary not less than 1,000 euro. And we were quite close. And these figures in construction sector, we also increased minimum salaries like significantly because we had like a lot of construction projects, developer projects. And what we observed that like people, they're coming back immediately when they have security and they have like proper salary. I mean, at least competitive salary. Because again, coming back to IT industry, due to cost of living. I mean, they have their own home, like they have real estate. So for them, it's cheaper, easier, and they don't want to immigrate if they have everything settled on the ground.
Okay. Does the government of Ukraine plan to nationalize greenfield assets? And will there be requirements to free carry participation for state-run mining agencies?
Government is planning, again, as we discussed, this like so-called like sleeping licenses. Again,
dormant licenses.
Yeah, we have hundreds of cases when people just sitting on them and they try to resell it, and the government is planning, yes, to, let's say, nationalize and then to have open contests for other investors.
Okay. All right. we're coming to the end of our time here. I think if I want to give you a chance, Minister. So one of the things I want to encourage you to think about is we ought to identify a handful of Ukrainian tech companies to come back to Minerals X next year that are relevant to the mining sector. And I suspect you know examples of Ukrainian tech companies because I think a lot of the tech sector is getting venture capital financing, including from Silicon Valley, including from Sand Hill Road. And so I think there are potential companies in the Ukrainian tech space that ought to be in this room next year. Do you agree with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I'd like you to make the case to this group about, okay, make the pitch about, just for folks to relieve this conversation about why is it worth their while to look at either the tech sector for Ukrainian minerals or for investing in the exploration of minerals in Ukraine. Just leave them with that as your parting thought.
I think first of all, if we're discussing like critical minerals sector, first of all, it's still greenfield. Again, due to reasons which I said, last 30 years, like Ukrainian companies, business, politicians, they were focused on much easier assets. Let's say they privatized like steel plants, etc., energy sector. So nobody is care like about the sector which required significant investment. So the good news is still like it's almost greenfield, and the good news it's all deposits they approved, and like we had like successful cases. We know like even USSR period of time we had whole cycle. So I mean it's still interesting, and it's still hundreds of billions. I don't know, was it trillions? How many trillions?
It could be it could be 2 trillion, could be 25 trillion.
Yeah. Second,
Then we're talking real money.
So we had like universities, we had education, we have science, we had like skills in this sector.
Human capital.
In this sector. I mean, because we have quite developed, like again, steel industry, iron ore. So there are people. So this is not a big deal. There are like whole cycle of companies which like could like be contractors, suppliers, whatever. I mean, and the key question is people. So people, they're in Ukraine, and yes, some of them in the army right now, etc. But again, at the end of the day, so like human factor, human capital, it's one of the key question, and it's people exist. And last probably question that on the way to EU, we are cleaning up, we are improving our system, and we are removing all previous like problems, barriers in all the sectors. And to finishing on technologies, yeah, it's like again in USSR period of time, Ukraine was R&D of USSR, so everybody knows this. That's why it was basis for our software engineering companies, industry, and again, even in this sector, we could use the leverage. But right now, because most of our companies, they're working for major companies in the world in this sector.
Minister,
as outsourcers.
let me just add something else, because I think it may be an elephant in the room, as we say in English, like an uncomfortable topic. You know, Ukraine has developed in 3 years' time, you mentioned this, an entire defense tech sector. They went from 0 to 1,200 companies in 3 years. The unbelievable, before it got pushed out of the news because of what's happened in the last week, all the different things that are going on in the world, what Ukraine did at Operation Spiderweb is unheard of. They'll be talking about this 100 years from now. They went as far as Siberia and knocked out their strategic bombers. These aren't, you can't just go to Amazon and mail order another strategic bomber. Like, they don't make them anymore. So like their ability to attack, so I think it's fair, Minister, to say like, is it fair to say that the morale is very high in Ukraine, that the Russians don't really, if you ask the military experts, they say the Russians probably don't have the ability to overrun the Ukrainians, because I think that's one of the questions people have, and that they, as long as Ukraine has enough weapons and either the money to pay for them and buy them, and the Europeans are committing to do that, that the likelihood of the Russians sort of having some sort of clear-cut military, that we're likely going to either have a stalemate, or that, you know, and that Ukraine is going to remain an ongoing country, and is going to be, and so this is, you don't have, that this group doesn't have to worry that there will be a Ukraine 5 years from now in the way it kind of currently looks. That will be the case. Is that fair, Minister?
Yes, exactly. That's fair. Yeah.
Okay, because I think sometimes people have that in the back of their minds, but no one wants to say it. But I think it's important that this group understand that there's reforms happening, they have the human capital, they have the deposits. Joining the European Union is a big deal in terms of both reforms, but also the kinds of money that they're going to get access to in the reconstruction, but also in terms of the kinds of rules of the game that Ukrainians, the investors are going to be able to play by, are going to be EU rules of the game, not some Wild West rules of the game, right? And then that Ukraine is going to remain an ongoing country, God willing, and hopefully gets its return to its 1991 borders as soon as humanly possible. But it's fair to say that the Russians aren't going to be, the Ukrainians are going to fight to the last person to make, there's morale, the morale is good, and the belief in the cause is strong. Is that fair?
Yes, that's absolutely fair, and we are proving this. Unfortunately, again, we are losing a lot of people. That's bloody war. Russia started this, but yes, it's like two big countries, and you're absolutely right with this modern technologies, with military tech. Again, it's completely new industry was created during the last 2 years, so we are doing this.
All right, please join me in thanking Minister Kubrakov.